Hello, as you can see today I'll be doing a video on Andromeda's Edge. This game came out in 2024. I actually got it not too long ago and just finally played it for the first time last week, just playing it solo as 3 players to learn it, and figured I'd go ahead and do a video on it. So let's get started with how to set up. Alright, as usual, the first thing we do is place the main board in the center of the play area. This is a fairly large board, as you can see. This game is going to take up quite a bit of my small table here. Next, you place this event board somewhere near the main board and place this event marker next to the player count that you're going to be playing with. I'm setting up for a 3-player game, so I'll place it next to the 3-player space. Next, you choose your event deck. The rules recommend this event deck, which is called Galactic Dawn. You'll shuffle that and place that on your event board. There is another event deck that comes with the retail version of the game that I got, which is this one. I believe it is called Cosmic Twilight, but as I said, the rules recommend Galactic Dawn, so I'll be putting this one back in the box. This is probably a good time to mention that this version that I have is the regular retail version. I know there's a deluxe or Kickstarter version that has, plastic minis for the raiders, and a lot of the tokens are higher quality than the cardboard tokens and stuff. So again, this is the standard retail version that I'll be going over here. I'm sure the rules are all the same, just the components are probably not quite as good as in the deluxe version. Next, you'll place this scrapyard board and place it somewhere next to the main board. Next, you'll take these 15 planet tiles. They have kind of like a planetary horizon there on them in different colors. You got like a green, brown, yellow. There's blue in here somewhere as well. Anyway, there's 15 of them. You'll shuffle those up. You'll then draw a number of these planet tiles based on the number of players. So for a 3-player game, that's 6. So I'm going to draw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And just to mention, if you were playing a 2-player game, you would just draw 4 planet tiles, and if you were drawing a 4-player game, you would draw 8 planet tiles. But again, I'm doing a 3-player game, so I'll draw 6. You then take these 6 alliance base tiles, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Place them with the number of tiles you drew, depending on the number of players, and shuffle up that stack. After you've shuffled those up, you begin drawing them and laying them out on the board from left to right, top to bottom, face up. So just start like so. You do not start in this nebula area up here. You start down in this section. And so in my case, with a 3-player game, I will have 12 tiles laid out here to start out with. My 6 alliance bases and my 6 planet tiles. The remaining planet tiles you didn't use, you can just place in a stack somewhere near the bottom of the board or off to the side if that works better for you. I don't have enough room for that, so I'll just be stacking my unused planetary tiles right there, and they will come into play later in the game. Next, you'll take these orphaned moon tokens. They have this kind of multi-colored background here. Shuffle them up, and then you'll put one face up in each of these nebula areas on the board. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Alright, then as I mentioned earlier, you've got other moon tokens in 5 colors: blue, green, red, yellow, and brownish. You'll take each of these colors, shuffle them individually, face down. Then you'll create a stack of 3 and put on each planet of the matching color. So for blue, we'll put it in this area here on the blue. If I had another blue planet, then I would create another stack of 3. I don't, so I will just set these aside in stacks of 3 for now. In the future, if another blue planet gets drawn from our planet tiles, then you'll set that stack of 3 on there. But we'll do that with our others. We'll set a stack of 3. Here's a brown planet, so this stack of 3 browns will go on this brown planet. And you'll see I'll need to put stacks on each of these other planets. Once you've got a stack on each of a stack of 3 on each of the planets, then you go ahead and flip the stack face up. Oops. Like so on each of the planets. So I'm going to get that done on all of these. So I've got these stacks of moon tokens on all of my planets. Again, the matching colors. And as I said, you'll put the stacks face down when you originally place them on there. Once you got all the stacks face down, then you flip them over so that they're face up. So you have a stack of 3 face up tokens on each of your planets. And again, as I mentioned, any of the moons you didn't place on your initial setup, you'll separate them into stacks of 3 of their color face down, and when other planets come out during the game and get placed on the board, if it's a planet, you take a stack of 3 of that color and place it face up on that planet. But for now, during setup, we just have this. Alright, next you'll set up your raiders. So first thing you'll do is choose one of the S-class raiders. There's 2. You've got the Slasher and the Vorticon Strikers. The rule books recommend for your first game to go with the Vorticon Strikers, so that's what we'll do. We'll put this one back in the box. You'll place this Raider card somewhere near the board. I'll place mine up here. For this version, you'll find the matching standees for those Raider and place them just somewhere near your card. So I've got those standees. Again, in the deluxe version, there's actually plastic minis for these. This is a good time to get out your Raider dice. Those are these brown dice. And just put them somewhere near where your Raiders are going to be. You'll take 2 of them at this time, roll them, and look at the results. You'll place one of your S-class Raiders in the nebulas matching those numbers, so we'll place one in the number 4. So these are our nebulas. We look with the one with the number 4, so we'll put one S-class Raider in there. And we also rolled a number 6, so we'll place one S-class Raider in the number 6 nebula. If you had rolled the same number on both die, you would place both of them in the same nebula. Next, you'll choose one A-class, one B-class, one C-class, and one D-class Raider to be used in this game. You can use any method you want to choose. So I'm just going to say I'm going to choose those. For my A-class, I'm going to choose these Corrigan Smugglers. For my B-class, I'll choose the Saucerian Abductor. For my C-class, I'll choose the Galactic Kraken. And for my D-class, I'll choose the Mortality Sphere. The other ones that you didn't choose will just go back in the box. You'll look at the image on the card for each Raider and find the matching standee and place it on its little base. Of course, again, if you have the deluxe version, you'll have a plastic mini for this instead of just a cardboard standee. You'll then place those Raider cards face down with their matching standee just somewhere near them. You then decide if you're going to play a short 50 point, medium 60 point, or long 70 point game. And once you decide, you place this terminus marker. We'll just say we're setting up for a short game, so we'll place that on the 50. Next, you'll take your module decks. You've got Science, Industry, Commerce, and Civilization. You'll shuffle those decks and then place them on the spots indicated on the top of the board for each deck. And then you'll draw and fill one module for each of the slots. So I've completed that. 3 Science, 3 Industry, 3 Commerce, and 3 Civilization modules have been drawn and placed on the appropriate spaces. Next, you'll take these Discovery tokens. They're the tokens with this beaker looking icon on the back. You'll shuffle those up. You'll grab 5. If I can grab 5, 4. You'll place one stack of 5 here on the Science track. Then you'll place another stack of 5 here on the Science track, like so. Finally, you'll place another stack of 5 up here at the top of this track. And the remaining Discovery tokens will just go back in the box. Next, you take these tokens. They're called the Supremacy tokens. And if I can quit knocking them over, you'll shuffle them up. And you'll place one on each of the 3 spots here on the Supremacy track, like so. And the rest of the tokens will just go back to the box. Next, you'll take this deck of cards. This is your Tactics deck. You'll shuffle that up and place that somewhere near the board where players can draw from it. Next, you'll take these development cards, separate them by type. I believe there's 3 of each one. Place them out with the matching development tokens nearby. Now in the deluxe version, I believe instead of these development tokens, they actually have plastic pieces that represent these. But in this version, it's these tokens. So you'll take the development cards, separate them by type, and place the matching development tokens nearby those cards. Then you'll create a supply of your resources. These are damage tokens, titanium, nanocarbon, ice, credits, and energy. And again, in the deluxe version, I believe these are all plastic pieces instead of these cardboard tokens. But in any case, whichever version you have, you create a supply of those resources and damage tokens. Next, we go on to player setup. The players will choose a color. This is the blue. You can see by the little blue highlights on this player mat. This is called the station mat, so each player will take a station mat in their color. You can give each player a player aid. Each player will take 6 transports in their color, 1 fighter in their color, 1 science vessel in their color, 1 heavy cruiser in their color, 9 leader tokens in their color, 6 dice in their color, 5 track markers in their color, and 1 VP marker in their color. The players will take 3 of their transports and stack them and place them in their launch bay for transports on their station mat. They'll just keep the others in a supply near their player area where they can build those in the future. And the other ships the same. Those can be built in the future as an action, and we'll talk about that later. You'll shuffle up these 12 faction cards and deal 3 to each player. Players will look at them and choose one to be the faction they want to play and return the others to the box, and they'll place the faction they choose down here at the bottom of their station. So for example, for the blue player here, we dealt him the Arcandan Shipwrights, Funginar Sporgots, and the Mecharon Synthborn. They each have, ability that you can look at for each of them, and then it also shows their starting resources on the back. So players will choose one and return the other 2 to the box. So if we say the blue player chose the Mecharon Synthborn, they'll look at the back, look at the resources, and they'll get those starting resources and place them on the area for their station that holds those resources. So for instance, 2 nanocarbon. Those will go here where it says nanocarbon. 3 titanium. Those will go here. And you may notice that it says max 5, so you can't ever have more than that many of those resources. We need 1 ice and 3 tactics cards. Here's our 1 ice, our 3 tactics cards. Then we go ahead and just flip this back over and put it face up so we can refer to those special abilities, and flip it face up there on our station. Each player takes their faction's unique ship upgrade tiles. The unique ship upgrade tiles have this yellowish back and has the name of the faction. So this is the Mecharon Synthborn, you see that? And it says here on their sheet their ship grade upgrade is the Terminator for their fighter. So you can see that's the one we have. So each player will take their own unique faction ship upgrade tile. Then you will separately shuffle the neutral ship upgrade tiles. They have this back, one for each type of ship. You'll shuffle them and deal 1 of each type to each player. So 1 science vessel, 1 transport ship upgrade, 1 heavy cruiser ship upgrade, and 1 fighter ship upgrade. So each player should end up with 5 ship upgrade tiles, 4 neutral, and then their faction specific. Any unused, after you've dealt those to each player, any unused tiles, if you're playing with fewer than 4 players, will just go back in the box. Each player places one of their track markers at the bottom space of each of the 5 tracks. And since I'm setting up for a 3-player game, I've got blue, purple, and green, and I have their marker at the bottom of each of the tracks. Players then look at the top left of their faction card and look at the tracks they have there. So for instance, the Mecharon Synthborn here have the industry and science, so they get to move up 1 space on each of those tracks. So blue gets to move up 1 on science, and 1 on industry. So let me get that done for the other players. Alright, so all 3 players got to move up 1 on the industry track. Green got to move up 1 on the supremacy track. Blue and purple got to move up 1 on the science track. And again, that's seen by looking at the faction the player chose at the top left corner. They see which track they move up 1 on. Each player then places one of their leaders in each of the 6 alliance bases that we've placed out, kind of over here in this leader section. So for instance, for the blue player, they'll put 1 there, 1 there, 1 there, 1 up here in Odessa Field, 1 in the development office, and then we need 1 in the trade hub. So let me get those done for the other players as well. Alright, so I've got the leaders, 1 leader for each player on each of the alliance base spaces. Each player then rolls a die and places 2 leaders on the nebula space, matching that. So the blue player rolled a 4, so he'll place 2 leaders in there. Oops. And he'll place his remaining leader on his station. So now I've gone ahead and done that for the green and purple player as well. And I just wanted to mention, if one of the other players rolled the same number, nebula number, as another player, that's perfectly fine. They can, more than one player can have their leaders in the same nebula. Then it says to choose a start player by simulating a battle. I'm not ready to talk about how battles work yet in the game, so I'm just going to choose my start player is going to be my blue player as usual, and then we'll go in clockwise order. The start player places their victory point marker on the number 1 space of the victory point track. The next player in clockwise order will move up 1 space and start on the next space. And finally, the next player in clockwise order, which is my green player, will then place their victory point marker on the 3 space. Alright, we've completed setup, so let's move on with how to play. So you start with your first player. On a player's turn, you can do one of 2 things basically. You can launch a ship from your station onto one of the regions of the board and take the appropriate action there. Or you can return all your ships that are on the board back to your station, and with those returning ships you can take the actions on your modules. And we'll talk more about returning to station later. Let's first talk about what you can do when you launch a ship. So if you choose to launch, you choose a ship from your station. Now at the beginning of the game, the only ships you have are your transports, so you would choose one of your transports to launch. And when you choose a ship to launch, if it is your first launch, meaning you have no other ships on the board, which will happen at the beginning of the game, and then again at the beginning of turns after you've done return to station, then you won't have any ships on the board. So every time you do your first launch, or every time you do a launch when you've got no ships currently already on the board, that's considered to be your first launch. So when you're doing a first launch, you can go to any unoccupied region on the board, so not occupied by another player's ship or by one of the raiders. Now, you can only go move a ship into one of the nebula regions if it has the voyage ability, which is an icon that looks like this. So of your starting ships, the only one with the voyage ability is the science vessel. So you cannot launch a transport to one of the nebula regions because it doesn't have the voyage ability. But it could launch to any other unoccupied space, so as long as there's not another ship there, then it could launch, to this planet, or it could launch, to this base. If this green player had a ship there, then it could not launch there, because, as I said, on a first launch, then you can't launch to any regions that are occupied. Now on subsequent launches, so after you've already have at least one ship on the board, then when it's your turn, if you're going to do a launch and launch a ship, the rules then are you have to launch within range of a ship you already have on the board, and the range of these ships is located on this icon here. So the range of transports is 1, range of a fighter is 2, range of the science vessel is 2, and range of the heavy cruiser is 1, which can be modified. We'll talk about that later. So on a subsequent launch, if you wanted to launch this transport, you would have to launch it within range 1 of a ship you already have on the board. So if this was the only ship you already have on the board, it would have to launch into, you could launch it into any of these spaces that are one space away from it. Now you can't launch to the same space where you already have a ship on subsequent launches, though you can at that point launch into spaces where an opposing player has ships, though that will probably start a battle. But if this was the case and I had this ship here and no other ships on the board, and I launched with this transport, I could not launch here because the range of the transport is 1, and that would be 2 spaces away from my other ship on the board. So again, on a subsequent launch, you have to launch within range of another ship that you already have on the board. You can't launch to the same space you already have a ship, but you could launch to a space where there is another player's or a raider's ship. But if it was later in the game and you had the science vessel, which does have a range of 2, you could launch to here because that is within range. It has a range of 2, so it could be up to 2 spaces away of from one of your other ships already on the board. Now, whether it's your first launch or a subsequent launch, if you launch to a planet, you take the top moon from that planet and you can place it onto your player mat. You can only have at most 4 on your player mat, or I guess I should call it your station. Now at any time on your turn, you can do what's called a free action called abandoning a moon, and you can discard a moon token from your station to gain the resource depicted on it. So you could discard this moon, it would just go face up, somewhere in a discard pile for moons, and you would be able to gain 1 credit. Again, you can do that at any time on your turn. There are some other things you can do with these moon tokens where you can slot them on some developments that you may get, or you can slot it over here on your tactical operations slot. You can do that at any time on your turn, or even on an opponent's turn. You can slot a moon into a space that's available. And we'll talk more about that when we talk about modules and when we talk about combat. So if you launch to a planet, you take the I just knocked all those over. You take the top moon token there, place it in one of the 4 available moon slots on your station. If the last moon token is taken from there, then when you launch to that planet, you just receive the resource depicted there. Alright, if you launch to one of the 6 bases, then you have to be able to take the action depicted on that base on your turn. Now, you can do one of the other free actions before doing the action depicted on that base, but before the end of your turn, you must be able to do the action depicted on that base. Now, for instance, this one, you can just turn in any 2 resources to gain 2 credits. And so when you see this question mark depiction for resources, that means any resources. So that means energy, ice, nanocarbon, titanium, and even tactics cards are considered credits. Are considered resources. So you could turn in any 2 resources to gain 2 credits. And credits can be used for something that has a cost of a credit, or credits are also used as a wild for titanium, nanocarbon, or ice. So anything that says maybe it costs a titanium and a nanocarbon, you could spend 2 credits for that. So anyway, that here at the Trade Hub, if you launch there, you must at some point before you end your turn trade 2 resources for 2 credits. If you launch to the Monolith of the Ancients, you have to trade 2 resources for 3 tactics cards. If you launch a ship to the Maximus Field, you'll see this icon. Wherever you see this triangle icon with an exclamation mark, that means advance the event marker. So the first thing you do when you would launch there is advance the event marker 1 space on the track. And then before the end of your turn here, you would have to buy 1 or 2, you see you can do it up to 2 times, modules from, you'd have to buy either 1 or 2 science modules. These are the available modules. These are their costs. So for instance, this module would cost you a nanocarbon and any resource. This module here would cost you 2 nanocarbon. And this module here would cost you 2 nanocarbon and any resource. And over here, the industry, you have these that are available, and these are their costs as well. So if you go to Maximus Field, you can buy 1 of each. You can buy either 2 science or 2 industry. Or you can just buy 1, and then you'll have to discard another one from one of the 2 options. So for instance, if you bought a science module, then you could discard another science module. And when I say discard, you actually just put it on the bottom of the stack. You don't put it in a discard pile. Or you could buy a science module and then just discard by putting it on the bottom of the stack one of the industry modules. So you don't have to buy 2. You do have to buy at least 1 if you come to this, paying the cost and gaining it. But you can buy up to 2, but if you only buy 1, you have to choose 1 from either of these columns and stick it at the bottom of its stack. And then after you finish that, you'll slide any that were there. Like if you took this one, then you would slide these 2 down and replace the top one from the stack. And whenever you gain a module, you'll move up on the corresponding track. So if you bought a science module, you would place it over here in your station. You play any module you gain, you put it in the row next to the corresponding module type on your station, and then you would go up 1 space. If this was blue, then he would go up 1 space on the science track. And then you see right here, I would have gotten to an icon that shows event. I would have to move up 1 space on the event track. So that's the Maximus Field. There's another one that's very similar. It just uses the other 2 types of modules. That's the Odessa Field. So if you come here, again, first thing you'll do is advance 1 space on the event track. And then you would have to buy at least 1 module from either the commerce or the civilization, but you could buy 2. Again, you could buy 2 from 1 or 1 of each. If you only buy 1, then you have to discard to the bottom of the stack either another one from the column that you did buy from or 1 from the other, and then slide down and refill from the stack the empty spaces. All right, so that's the Odessa Field, I think. Oh, we didn't cover the shipyard. If you come to the shipyard, you have the opportunity to either build a new ship, and you build a ship by just paying the cost. So if you want to build a fighter, it would cost 1 titanium and 1 energy. If you wanted to build a science vessel, 1 titanium and 2 nanocarbon. And if you wanted to build a heavy cruiser, it would be 1 titanium and 2 ice. Once you pay the cost, like if you decide to build the science vessel, then you just add the science vessel to your launch bay, and then it would be available to place on a launch action on a future turn. So again, this one gives you the option to build a ship or repair. We'll talk about repair action here in a little bit. And the last base we haven't talked about is the development office. If you launch a ship to the development office, then you'll have to be able to take the development action before you end your turn. And to take the development action, you have to have one of your transports on a planet. So for example, let's just say we had this transport already here. All right, say the board was like this. We had a transport here. We have a fighter here. It's our turn. We do a launch action. We're able to launch here because it's within one range of a ship we already have on the board. We take a development action. You have to be able to develop on a planet where you already have a transport. And then to do that development, you have to be able to pay the cost of that development. This one depicted here, you can see as a factory. So to be able to build this development, you would have to pay 2 titanium and have 2 liters that you could spend from your station. Now currently, Blue only has 1 liter on his station. But a free action you can do anytime on your turn is to recruit leaders from any regions, recruit your leaders from any regions where you have a ship. So if I came here, before I took the development action, I could recruit this blue leader because I have a ship there, and I could recruit this blue leader because I have a ship there. Whenever you recruit a leader, you place it on your station, and now I've got 3 leaders there. So then I could take the development action, which would cost me 2 liters. So I would just discard these 2 liters, away from the game. I think the deluxe version that actually has the plastic pieces for these developments has slots that you actually stick the liters into that you spend to build the development. But for this version, you just discard the 2 liters out of the game. They still count as being on this development. That's why it has the depiction of the 2 liters right there. But then, so you pay the 2 titanium, pay the 2 liters, and then you slot this onto the transport that you have there. Now it has to be a transport because they have this populate ability, and you have to have the populate ability in order to build a development on a planet. Now, unfortunately, once you use a transport to build a development on, you no longer have use of that as a ship anymore. So when you do return to station and you return your other ships from the regions on the board, you don't return your development, and it doesn't count as a ship any longer, but it does give benefits. Now let's finish talking about building the development. So after you've paid the cost and paid the leaders and place the token, you do get to take the card associated with that development. And for factory, you get to then move up 1 on the industry track. So for example, if Blue is moving up 1 on the industry track, he would move up 1 space, and then he would immediately get to upgrade 1 of his ships. Whenever you upgrade 1 of your ships, you look at your upgrade tiles, and you'll see that it gives a benefit that is somewhat better than the ship you already have. Now, you'll remember that for the fighter, this race has a unique fighter that they could upgrade to, or if they wanted to choose the regular default fighter upgrade, they could choose that rather than the one that comes as a unique faction. So anyway, you get to choose 1 of your ships that you want to upgrade. Maybe he wants to use this faction unique ability. So you place that over the launch bay. and any, oh, well, that's for the fighter, not for the transport. You put that over the launch base space, and then your fighters then have the abilities shown on that upgrade. So for this one, it gives you an X. See, this is the number of dice you get in battle, so you'd go from 2 to 3, and then it gives whatever the ability is here. We'll talk more about the ship abilities here in a little bit, but I just wanted to mention when you get a chance to upgrade, you take one of your upgrade tiles and place it, cover up the launch bay of that particular type of ship, and all those ships uh, then currently have the ability that's shown on that upgrade tile. Now you can only upgrade each ship type one time. Alright, but let's get back to the development. So again, you built the factory, you got the development card, it lets you move up one on the track that's associated with that, in this case industry. Move up one on the track. As soon as you move up on the track, you get to take whatever action, if there is one, from moving up that track. Then you also get to score victory points depending on the number of leaders in the space where your development is, and adjacent to that development up to a maximum of 10. So in this case, if you built this development, well, it's got 2 leaders in it. The 2 leaders that you spent to build it, they count as being in that space. Then there's 3 leaders adjacent over here, that's 5. 3 leaders adjacent over here, that's 8. And I think that's all the leaders. So you would score 8 victory points moving up 8 points along the track. Now again, the maximum is 10, so even if there were more leaders around there, you couldn't score more than 10 victory points for that development. Then you keep this development card in your play area. It has a one-time special ability. Once you use it, you flip it over, and then you keep it because you'll have some in-game scoring that we'll talk about later for your developments. But each development does have one-time special ability you can use whenever you wish. This one gives you 2 repair actions. And then once you've spent that, you flip it over and then just keep it till end of game when you're doing scoring. Alright, so that covers the development office, and I think that covers all the actions on the Alliance bases. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention when I was talking about the upgrade, when you get an upgrade action and you get to choose an upgrade tile or one of your ships to upgrade, if you don't already have that ship on your station or on the board, you get to build one for free at that point. Otherwise, you normally have to use a build ship action, but when you upgrade, you get to build a ship for free. So, again, as I mentioned, there's a number of free actions that a player can take on their turn, besides when you launch to a region and either take the moon or take the base action there. I've already mentioned a few of those free actions. You can recruit leaders that are in the region where your ship or any other of your ships are at that time. You can do that as a free action on your turn. You can use the ability on your development card, which we talked about on this one. Gives you 2 repair actions. The other developments have different actions. You can do that as a free action on your turn, but again, that's a one-time ability on your development card. We'll talk about how you gain these discovery and supremacy tokens in a little bit, but if you have one of those in your station or in your play area, you can use that to get the benefits shown on it as a free action on your turn. We already talked about abandoning one of the moon tokens. If you've got moon tokens on your ship as a free action on your turn, you can abandon it to get the benefits shown on that moon token. Some events may place resources in a region, like may place credits or some other resources in a region. If you launch your ship to that region, then as a free action, you get to collect those resources that are in that region. And some factions have some of their bonus abilities which you can use as a free action. Now some are just passive. Like for this mech synthborn, they have the ability to synthesize. You can freely exchange titanium and energy for each other. So if something had a energy cost, you could spend titanium instead, or if something had a titanium cost, you could spend energy instead. And then they also have this ability during battle preparations. If you spend one or more energy to gain additional dice, then you also gain one targeting. We haven't talked about battle yet, so that wouldn't make any sense to you. But some factions may have an ability that you can do as a free action on your turn. All right. Well, we haven't completely finished talking about launch yet. So as I mentioned, you can launch to one of the regions. If you launch to a planet, you collect the moon there. If you launch to a base, you must be able to do the action there, and then any free actions you're able to do. But after you have activated that region to get the moon or do the action, then you move on to what's called the Raider Strike phase of the launch. And the Raider Strike step is where raiders may possibly move into your region. That's called them striking, which will then, of course, cause a battle, likely, if that happens. So let's talk about how the Raider Strike step works. Wherever you launch your ship, that is called the active region. So in this case, if this player launched a ship here, this region is the active region. Then if there are no raiders that are within range, so the only raiders on the board are these two Vorticon strikers that we have, and their range, as you can see, is 1. So they are not within range. This one is 2 spaces away. This one is 3 spaces away. So neither of these raiders are within range. So they could not move. They could not strike. Let's say it's a later in the game and this Corrigan smuggler raider has been placed on the board. You've already previously launched a ship here. It's your turn again. You're going to do another launch action. You launch this transport. Of course, you can then, because it's not your first launch, you can launch it to where there's opponent ships or raiders. And as long as you put it within range of one of your other ships, so it can move here. So you could launch there, then activate this region, by taking a moon and doing any free possible actions that you want to do. Then you go on to the Raider Strike phase. If there is already a raider in that region, then there's no Raider Strike. Now you'll still end up having a battle because you've moved into a space with a raider, but no other raiders could move into that space. Even if this Vorticon striker was here, if there's already a raider that's not an S-class, there is a caveat to that, and we'll talk about it in a minute. If there's already a raider that's not an S-class raider, which is, in this case, our Vorticon strikers, if there's already a raider in that space that you launch to, then no other raider can strike and move in there. If you launch into a space that contains an S-class raider, which is our Vorticon strikers, then you can check for Raider Strike, and any other S-class raiders within range, like this one is, then can move into the active region. So if there were other Vorticon strikers within range, they would all be able to move into the active region. If there are no raiders in the active region, so if you launched here, gathered your moon, activated the region, gathered your moon, there's no raiders in that region, but there are some within range of that region, you then choose one type of raider. So you could either choose, this one, and it is in range. That's the Corrigan Smugglers. They have a range of 1. So you could choose that one. It is within range, so it would decide to move in there and strike. Or you could choose, the Vorticon Strikers. If you choose the Vorticon Striker type, then any of those that are within range could move in there and strike. Alright, but at the beginning of the game, we only have one type, and that is the Vorticon Striker. Now, I will mention one other thing. I had mentioned that only ships with the voyage capability are able to enter nebulas. Well, all raider types are considered to have the voyage ability. So if you launched a ship into a nebula, and then during the raider strike phase, there are some, raiders that are within range. They could move into the nebula. They all have the voyage ability. Alright, so to recap, on a launch, a turn where you decide to launch, you launch one ship from your launch bay to a region on the board. If it's a first launch, it has to be to an unoccupied region. If it's a subsequent launch, it has to be within range of another one of your ships, but not occupied by one of your ships. But it can be occupied by another ship at that time. Then you activate the region and take the action or the moon or whatever is there. Then you'll have a raider strike, which we just talked about. And then the final thing, if more than one faction or raider is in the active region, then there will be a battle. So, to give an example of how battle works, we'll say the blue player takes a launch action. They launch to this planet, which they can because it's within range of a region. They already have a ship. They take the action, they take that moon, and we'll say they take that moon and put it on their station. Then they've now activated the region, so we go on to the raider strike. There is a raider right here that is within range because these Vorticon Strikers have a range of 1. So that raider would move in there. There is another S-class raider, but it is not in range. It's more than 1 away, so it wouldn't move in there. So now we would go to the battle step. And that is because 2 or more opposing factions and or raiders are in the active region. Even if this raider had not been here, but this player had launched and this green ship was here, then because 2 opposing factions are in the same region, there would still be a battle because of that. So it doesn't just have to be triggered by a raider strike. But we'll go back to our example where we said this ship went here. During the raider strike, this raider moved here. And now we will move on to the battle. So the first step of a battle is called escalation. So any player, including the active player, that has ships within range of the active region where the battle is taking place, then they have the opportunity to move their ships there. So beginning with the active player, in this case the blue player, he does have 1 ship within range, so he can take the opportunity. If he wants to, he doesn't have to, but if he wants to, he can move any ships he has within range into the active region, to take place in the battle. Then in clockwise order, the other players, if they want to move and take place in the battle, they can as well. So our purple player doesn't have any ships on the board, so they can't, but the green player does have 1 ship within range. So maybe they decide they want to also join the battle, so they move it into the active region. All right, so that's the escalation step. Each player has 1 opportunity to decide if they want to move a ship or ships that are within range to the active region to join the battle. Next, we move to the diplomacy step. So beginning with the active player, if they have a diplomacy tactics card, they have the opportunity to play that if they want to. those diplomacy cards can have different effects, even including ending the battle without any battle being fought. So the active player has the opportunity to play one and only one diplomacy card. If they choose not to, that's their only chance to do it. And it goes in clockwise order. Since the purple player is not involved in the battle, they wouldn't have an opportunity to play a diplomacy card. The green player, they do have a diplomacy card. All the diplomacy cards are this blue color tactics card. And you can see this one, ceasefire. The battle ends. If they played it, the battle would end. There would be no further steps in this battle, and they would get to advance one space. The green player would get to advance one on the supremacy track. And whenever you play a tactics card, you just put it in a discard pile for the tactics cards. But because I want to show how a battle works, I'm going to say the green player does not have this, or does not play this, so the battle's not going to end. They just decide not to play that. So we go on to the next step of a battle. Next, all the players participating in the battle will get to move to the battle preparation step, and they will determine how many dice they're going to roll and their targeting value. So first thing, they'll look at the ships that they have in the battle. For instance, the blue player has 2 transports that each get to roll 1 die, so the blue player would get 2 dice. The raider, we look at them, Vorticon Striker gets 2 dice, so they would get 2 dice. And the green player has 1 transport, which gets 1 die, so the green player would get 1 battle dice. That number that determines the number of dice that ship gets is called their weapons value. Then any player that has a development in or adjacent to the planet or the region where the battle is taking place, they get to add 1 dice for each development that they have in or adjacent. Now in this case we don't have any, but say if the blue player had a development on this planet, they would get to add 1 dice. Or if the green player had a development on this planet, they would get to add 1 dice. So any player that has a development in that active region where the battle is taking place or adjacent to it, they get to add a die for each of those developments. Then, beginning with the active player and proceeding clockwise, each player has one opportunity to decide if they want to spend energy to add dice to roll in the battle. So in this case, the blue player, they don't have energy, so they can't spend any. The raiders don't get that opportunity. And then the green player, they say, well, they've only got 1 dice, so they decide, yeah, I'm going to spend 1 energy. No, maybe they decide they're going to spend 2 energy to add 2 dice to their roll. So now they'll be rolling 3 dice, where the other blue and the raider are only going to be rolling 2 dice. Now after the green player decides that they were spending 2 energy to add 2 more dice, the blue player now can't go back and say, well, even if he had energy, he can't come back now and say, oh, I decide I'm going to add energy too. No, you have 1 opportunity, and it starts with the active player. They say if they're going to spend any, and then it goes around to any other players, not raiders, that are participating in the battle. They get to decide if they're going to spend energy to add dice. All right, so after that's done, then you determine each participant in the battle, you determine their targeting value. Now the targeting value is the minimum value you can get on a die. So for instance, each ship there adds 1 to the targeting value. So blue has a targeting value of 2. So if any 1s that they roll, they would get to re-roll until they get at least a 2 or greater. If they had 3 ships in there, then anything below 3 that they rolled, any 1s or 2s that they rolled, they would get to re-roll until they get at least a 3 or greater. So the targeting value is the minimum that you can roll. If you don't get that on one of your dice, you get to re-roll that dice until you're equal to or greater than your targeting value. Now the green ship only has one ship in there, so their targeting value is 1. So even if they roll any 1s, they won't get to re-roll them. And the raider, their targeting value is also 1. So even if they roll a 1, they don't get to roll that. But the blue player have a targeting value of 2. If they roll any 1s, they would get to re-roll any 1s until they at least get a 2 or greater. Now some cards, tactics cards or other effects may increase your targeting value. It can never be more than 5. So your targeting value can never be greater than 5. And the number of dice that you can roll can never be greater than 6. That's the maximum number of dice that you can roll. A raider's targeting value will say on its card, if it has an icon like this, that means its targeting value is +1. If there were 2 Vorticon strikers in there, then their targeting value would be 2 because they have 2 ships in there. But in this case, there's not. So the only one with a targeting value higher than 1 is the blue player because they have 2 ships. Remember, it's 1 per ship, so they have a targeting value of 2. Now players may be able to play a battle tactics card, which are these red cards, for instance like this one. You play during the battle preparations phase that adds 2 d6 to the battle plus 1 to your targeting. So, if a player had one of these that they could play during this battle preparation step, they would play it now. That would add dice. But again, you can never have more than 6 dice, and your targeting value can never be higher than 5. But in this case, none of my players had this, so they won't play that. So now we just roll the battle dice. Alright. Now you compare the highest die of each participant in the battle. So for instance, green got a 6, blue got a 6, and the raider only got a 4, so they've already lost. Now you check the next highest die, which green got a 5, blue only got a 4, green also got a 2. But the Raiders lost right away because comparing the highest dice, they didn't get a 6, so they are out. They've already lost. Then we go on to compare the next die since these two tied, and the green player beat the blue player's next highest die, so the green player would win this battle. If, for example, blue had also rolled a 5 here, well then you'd go to the next die and compare. But because blue does not have another die and green does, even though their value is only 2, they would still win the battle because blue doesn't have a die they can compare against there. So that's how you determine the outcome. You compare the highest dice. If blue had rolled a 5 here, well, then you wouldn't even have to compare the next highest die because green got the highest roll, so they would automatically win with a roll of 6. But since blue did roll a 6, then you have to go on to the next highest dice and compare that. So that's how it works, and then whichever player wins that is the winner of the battle. If a player won, like the green player did in this example, they get to advance 1 on the supremacy track. So the green player would go up 1 on the supremacy track, and because we got next to an event icon, we would move the event marker up 1 on the event track. If any raiders were defeated, then the winner gets to look at the card for the raider that was defeated and gets that reward. So in this case, the green player would get to draw and gain a tactics card. Any defeated player, not raider, but any defeated player, like in this case the blue player was defeated, gets to take the tactical operation on their station. So in this case, they could, as you can see, when they lose a battle, they could take a tactics card, but they do have a moon, so they could slot this moon over here, and then it would be permanently slotted here, unless they decide to discard it at another point. But now when they lose a battle, they can either gain a tactics card or gain an ice and a titanium. At this point, all defeated players, if their ships do not have shields, their ships have to go to the scrapyard. So in this case, transports do not have shields. You can see here, like the heavy cruiser does have a shield. So since the transport doesn't have shields, their ships, since they lost, will have to go over here to the scrapyard. You can see, and Vorticon Striker, there's no shield icon on their cards, so they just go back near their card. If a player's ship or raider was involved in the battle and they did have a shield, instead of being moved to the scrapyard, they could stay there, and they would just put a damage marker on their shield icon there. And then if they were later still had that damage marker on their shield icon and they lost a battle, well then, it's because their shields are already depleted because they have a damage marker on them, then they would be moved to the scrapyard. But these damage markers can be removed with a repair action. So I mentioned we'd talk about repair actions later. Well, that's one thing that a repair action can do, is remove a damage token from a shield icon. Now, ships that are sent to the scrapyard, you haven't lost those for good. Whenever you do a return to station action, which we're going to talk about very shortly, you'll get to get those ships back. Though if they are still in the scrapyard, you will not get to use them to activate modules at your station when you bring them back. So it's probably a good time to talk about repair actions. So, obviously you can have ships move to the scrapyard if you lose a battle. You can get damage markers on your shields, if I just talked about. If you lose a battle and you have to put a damage marker on a shield. Some of your modules, like if you ever gain one of these modules that has a damage icon on it, as soon as you gain that, you have to immediately put a damage marker on that, and it is damaged. And some other game effects may damage a module that's in your station. So to get rid of these damage, you use a repair action. So anytime you take a repair action from maybe from a region like the shipyard, or from your shipwright module, or perhaps a development, or any game effect that gives you the repair icon, you can spend that to repair a ship by moving a ship in the scrapyard down to the repair barge. In that case, when you do a return to station action, you will get to activate a module with that ship, where if you return it from the scrapyard, you don't get to activate a module, but you will get to put it back in your launch bay. But you can use a repair action to remove a damage token from a module that it's on. And as I mentioned, you can also use a repair action to remove a damage token from a shield that has been damaged. You can also take a repair action if you don't have anything to repair, if you've got no ships in the scrapyard, if you've got no damage to modules and no damage to shields, you can still take a repair action. And if you have nothing to repair, then you can move, you gain 1 victory point, and you can move up 1 step on the victory point track. But if you take a repair action and you do have anything to repair, you have to repair it rather than gaining a victory point. So I think we've pretty much covered the launch action. You launch to a region, and which region you can launch to depends on if it's a first launch or a subsequent launch. You activate the region that you went to, then you have a raider strike if there are some raiders that can strike, and then if 2 or more opposing ships or raiders occupy the active region, you'll then have a battle. So that pretty much covers the launch action. As I mentioned, there is another type of action you can do, and that is the return to station action. Now you can do the return to station action at any time as long as you have at least one ship out on the board. But if all your ships are out on the board, then when it comes your turn, you must take a return to station action. Alright, so we'll say that the blue player has all the ships that they have out on the board or in the scrapyard or in the repair barge, and they decide they're going to take a return to station action. So they'll choose their ships one at a time, and they can put them on modules to activate that module. Now, for instance, if they place a ship here, then they get to gain 1 credit and put it in their, in their station. Now up here, on the science modules, you only have to activate the primary reactor, and then you automatically activate any other science modules you have there. So in this example, if the blue player brought this ship back and placed it on the primary reactor, they would gain 2 energy. Then they would automatically activate this module without having to place anything there, and they would get the choice of taking another energy or a titanium. So maybe they decide, okay, I'm going to take the 2 energy there and the other energy there, so that gives them 3 energy, which they would place on their station. Now they still have 2 other ships to return to station. This one in the scrapyard, they can't activate a module with that because it's in the scrapyard, but this one that they had taken a repair action to move it down to the repair barge, they can move this one back to a module and take an action with that. So for example, maybe they play this one here to gain 1 titanium. So you don't have to do it on the first one, you can do it on any module in the row, except for the science module, and then you have to play it on the first one, and that automatically activates all the others. So if they play that one there, they gain 1 titanium, which they would put in their station. Now you'll notice that this blue player, they've got these 2 modules. You'll see when they put those 2 modules together, that formed a moon slot here. So they can at any time slot one of their available moons from their station into that slot, and now that will be there. And if they activate both of these modules, then they also get the benefit shown on that moon that was slotted between them. So in this case, the blue player only has 1 other ship, but it's in the scrapyard, so they can't use that to activate a module. But you can also, when you're doing return to station, you can activate modules with energy, as long as at least 1 ship is already in the row of the module that you're going to activate. So because we've already placed a ship in this row, we could spend 1 energy to activate this module, and now we could either build a ship or do a repair action, and then we would also get the benefit shown here of getting 1 ice and 1 titanium. Now, we couldn't spend this other energy to activate this module because we don't have at least one ship has not activated at least 1 module in that row already. So during the return to station action, you can only activate a module if at least 1 ship has already activated at least 1 module in that row. If any of your modules have damage markers on them, then you're not allowed to activate them. But if I took this energy to take this module action here and used it as a repair action, I could then repair this ship, and now I can take this ship from the repair barge and use it to activate a module. So now I could place it down here and either gain a tactics card or do a development. But to do a development, I would have to have a transport still on the board on a planet. So in this case I don't, so I would just have to take a tactics card. Again, your tactics card hand limit is 5. If I didn't take that repair action, and so I still had this ship in the scrapyard, as I said, I would still get to return it to my station and return it to the launch bay, but I could not use it to activate a module. So after you finished activating all your modules, any energy you spent on modules you then discard to the supply, and all ships that you've got on your modules that you use to activate, you then return them to their launch bays, like so. Any ships you return to the launch bay that have a damage marker on their shield, you get to remove it at that point. You are not allowed to leave any ships out on regions or in the scrapyard or repair barge when you do return to station. You have to move all your ships back to the station unless you have some ability or tactics card that says otherwise. If you had at some point on one of your turns played a tactics card that had the sustain ability, like this tactics card, you can play it on your turn when you're not in battle. So maybe the blue player played it on one of their turns previously. You'll see it has a sustain ability that lets you may not, or you may use tactics cards as if they were credits. Well, anything that you've played that has a sustain ability, it stays in your play area until the end of the return to station action, and then at the end of the return to station you have to discard any cards that you'd played, tactics cards that you'd played that had a sustain ability. And that's pretty much for the return to station action. So, but we've talked about some tactics cards. Let's just look at some other ones that maybe this player has. This is another one that you can play when you lose a battle. You advance one space on a progress track of your choice. Again, that's these tracks up here. So if you played this after you lost a battle, like the blue player could have during that battle we've seen, they could play that, discard it, and they could have gone up one on any track. This one, play immediately after any opponent advances on a progress track. You advance one space on the same track. So the tactics cards just have many different uses, and they tell you exactly when you are allowed to play them. Some are on your own turn, some can be on other players' turns. It just depends on what they say. The blue diplomacy cards can only be played in the diplomacy step of a battle. And as I said previously, tactics cards can be used whenever something has the question mark for any resource. Tactics cards are counted as a resource. I had mentioned that you can slot a moon token once you get a space like this from modules. You can slot a moon token there, and then it stays there. You can slot one here. You can abandon a moon token that has been slotted, but unlike where if you abandon a moon token that's on your station, you can just abandon it to discard it to get the benefits shown on the token. If you abandon a moon token that you've already slotted somewhere, you are allowed to abandon it, but you won't get the benefit from it. You'll just discard it. So I've covered the two possible actions you can do on your turn. You can do a launch action or a return to station action, and all the things that go along with it, as I've already covered. Let's talk about the event track and events. So as I mentioned, whenever you move your marker to an event space, or if you play some tactics cards will have an event marker at the top. If you play one of those tactics cards, that will advance the marker on the event track. And that will be these yellow type tactics cards. So for instance, if you played on your turn when you're not in a battle, you played this, well, it does have this event icon, so when you play it, it's going to advance the event track. So various things will advance the marker on the event track if they have this icon. Once the marker reaches the final step on the event track, the first thing you'll do is, even if you're in the middle of your turn, you'll immediately draw the top tile from the stack of planetary tiles and place it next, top to bottom, left to right, so the next one would go right here. Then you would take the event marker if it was in the middle of your turn, place it on your station, so that you know after you finish your turn, you then have to draw the top event card and activate it. So we'll say the green player was doing their turn. The event marker moved to the top of the track. They had to immediately place a new region tile out. They placed the marker on their station, finished doing whatever action or whatever they were doing on their turn. Now it's the end of their turn, so they have to draw the top event card and resolve it. Oh, and when we place this planet tile, we should have taken the 3 moon tokens we have over in the supply, turn them face up, and place them on the moon area of that new planet tile. So whenever a new planet tile is revealed because of an event being triggered at the end of the event marker reaches the end of its track, you'll place the moons, a stack of 3 moon tokens that correspond to the color of that planet onto that planet. All right, but now back to the player resolving the event card. The first thing you'll do is look at this icon up here, and each player will score victory points on that particular track dependent on where their marker is on that track. So this is the civilization progress track. So all players will look where their marker is on the civilization track and score that amount of victory points. Now everybody is on the first step of this track, so they would all score 5 victory points. But if maybe purple was up here, they would score 7 victory points, and blue and green would only score 5. So you look at the icon for the progress track on the event card, and all players score victory points depending on where they are on that track. But any modules, this says here minus, and that's showing an icon for modules, minus any modules that you have damaged. So that's like a little damage marker on a module. So if you had, if the blue player maybe had 1 module damaged, instead of scoring 5 victory points, they would only score 4. And if the purple player had 2 damaged modules, then instead of scoring 7 victory points, they would only score 5. So that's why you want to repair damaged modules as soon as you can, because you'll lose victory points whenever an event comes around if you have damaged modules. Next, you'll look here, and it shows a new raider that's going to be placed on the board, the C-class. So you would look for a C-class raider, flip its card over. Its card will tell where it will be placed on the board. So this one begins in the Maximus field. So you would take the corresponding raider and place it where it said it's going to be placed. And then now that's a new raider that will be out on the board that has the opportunity to strike if you move within its range. Next, you do the special effect for this one. Each player gains 1 ice resource, then put 1 bonus ice on the newly placed planet. So that would be this one. It would get an ice resource placed on it, and 1 on each adjacent region. So then you'd put a ice resource on each adjacent region to that planet. Then that event card is done. You would just put it in an event card discard pile and reset the event track by placing the marker back where it goes depending on the number of players. And then it would begin moving again. When it reaches the end of the track, you would do the whole thing over again. So now that we've covered events, I want to talk a little bit about these nebula regions. I had mentioned during the launch you can only launch into a nebula region if you're using a ship that has the voyage ability. And again, unless you get an upgrade or something that says otherwise, only your science vessels have that. But if you launch into a nebula region, you do get to grab the moon token that's there if you're the first one there. And then it also has this ability here where you get to look at the top 2 event cards on the deck, choose 1 to place back on the top and 1 to place on the bottom. So that's the advantage of going to a nebula. I think we've just got a few more small details to cover. Ship abilities, as I mentioned, this one lets, this is the populate, which allows transport to be turned into developments if somebody takes a development action. a transport on a planet. Um, this one is the attack action. Now, I had mentioned normally during a launch action, on a first launch, you have to move to an unoccupied uh, region if it's a first launch for you, which that occurs when you don't have any other ships on the board currently. But the fighter has the attack action, so they actually can, on a first launch into a region that is occupied by an opponent, a raider or an opponent. The science vessel has the voyage icon, which allows science vessels to uh, launch into nebulas. And finally, the heavy cruiser has the jump ability, which lets you spend one energy when it launches, or if it moves into a battle during the escalation phase, you can spend one energy to have it move any number of spaces. In other words, it will have infinite range. So normally, like I said, on a subsequent launch, you have to move. When you launch on a subsequent launch, you have to move or launch to a region that is within range, which the normal range of this heavy cruiser is just one, so within one space of another ship you already have on the board. But if you spend an energy, then you can place it anywhere else on the board where you don't already have one of your own ships, because then it has unlimited range. And some ship upgrades may give some other abilities, but that's the basic abilities. So I think we've covered all of that. I think the only thing left to cover is some of the spaces on the progress track, or progress tracks. So these spaces here on these progress tracks, those are development spaces. You'll see there's 3 of them on each track. So I had mentioned when you build a development at the end of the game, you'll get victory point scoring. And so depending on where you are on that track, it will depend on the number of points you get. So for instance, this one, which corresponds to the industry track, if you've passed level 1, then you'll score 5 victory points for that development you built at the end of the game. But if you've reached the level 2 development icon on this track, then you'll score 7. And if you've reached all the way up to the level 3 at the end of the game, you would score 10 victory points for that development. So it's this. You have the icon for developments on each track, and that tells you how many points you're going to score depending on where you've reached on that track at the end of the game. When a player reaches this space or this space on the science track, they get to look at these tokens, pick them all up, choose one. They just have different abilities. This one lets you upgrade a ship, like we've already talked about the upgrade icon and what that does. So you get to look at these, draw one, keep it on your station. You don't have to use it as soon as you get it, but you can use it as a free action on your turn. You can always discard one of those discovery tokens to get the benefit printed on it. These tokens up here are the observatory. So whenever you build an observatory, then the one-time ability is to grab that stack of development tokens, look through them, and choose one to keep, and then put the others back. Okay, the industry track we've already talked about. We're talking about upgrade actions and that those let you upgrade ships. Of course, these icons advance you on the event track. On the supremacy track, when you reach one of these spaces, you get to take the supremacy token there, and again, it has some benefit which you can spend at any time on one of your turns to discard the token and take the benefit shown on it. This track has these vault spaces. So normally at the end of game scoring, which we'll talk about here in just a minute, unspent resources in your station are normally worth nothing. in scoring. But if you've at least reached at least vault space 1, then any unspent resource that you have on your station during end game scoring will be worth 1 point. And if you've reached vault space 2, then any unspent resources at the end of the game will be worth 2 victory points each. And on the civilization track, again, we've talked about most of these, but these icons increase your tactics card limit. So if you reach this space, your tactics hand limit becomes 6 instead of 5, and if you reach this space, your tactics card hand limit becomes 7 instead of 6. And that covers all the progress tracks. So I think finally we've reached the end, and that covers pretty much everything except end of game. So the game will end. You remember we determined the game length at the beginning by putting this terminus marker here. You could either place it here, here, or here, depending on the length of the game. As soon as the player's victory point marker reaches or exceeds the terminus marker, all the players, including the player whose token reached that or exceeded that, get one more turn, and after that the game ends, and then you do final scoring. So first thing is each player will get to score victory points depending on where their marker is on each of the progress tracks. So if Blue's marker was here, they would score 9. If they were here, they'd just score 7. So where everybody's marker is on the progress track, they get to score that many victory points, moving their victory point marker along the track. Then any developments they've built, as I mentioned, you score victory points depending on where you are on the corresponding track. So if your marker was up past the level 2 for the obelisk, but not all the way up to the top, then you would score 7 victory points. If you had not reached the level 2, then you would only score 5 victory points, unless you were only on the first step, in which case you wouldn't score any victory points. So you get to score for any developments that you built. Then at this point, if you have any damaged modules on your station, for each damaged module you have on your station, you have to subtract 2 victory points. Then if you've reached the Vault 1 or Vault 2 space on the commerce track, then you can score points depending on which one of those you've reached on any unspent resources that you have. Some of the blue modules that you may have gained and placed on your station, they have end of game scoring. If they have this pink banner, you'll see they've got some end of game scoring, so you'll just look at any of those you have and score those accordingly. You then score 1 point for each unspent leader you have on your station. And then if your faction has any end of game scoring abilities, you would then score those. After all those are scored, whoever's got the most victory points is the winner. If there happens to be a tie for the player with most victory points, then the player with most modules at their station wins. If there happens to be a tie between those players, then between those tied players, whoever has the most resources at their station would be the winner. And in the unlikely event that there was still a tie, then those tied players would share the victory. So I think that pretty much covers everything. I will try to get set back up how I was right after we went over setup, and we'll do some example turns. Alright, I think we have everything set back how it was right after we did setup. So we'll begin with our first player, the blue player. And of course, nobody has any ships on the board, so the blue player is going to do a launch, and it'll be their first launch, so they just have to go into any unoccupied region, and of course they are all unoccupied right now since it's the first turn of the game. So we'll just have the blue player, they're going to launch to this planet. They'll go ahead and acquire this moon token, put it on their station. Alright, that's pretty much all they can do. They've activated that region, taken the moon token. Now we would go to the raider strike. There's no raiders within range. There's 2 up here, but their range is 1, which is nowhere near the active region. So they can't strike. So then, of course, there's no battle. So that's pretty much all there is for blue's turn. Alright, next we'll come to our purple player. Alright, they are going to do a launch action as well. It's their first launch since they have no ships on the board. They just can't launch to where, since it's their first launch, they couldn't launch to where the blue player is. They have to launch to an unoccupied region. And we'll just say, for example, they're going to launch to the trade hub. And for their free action, they're going to recruit their leader there, put that on their station. And then they've got to be able to do the trade hub action, which is to exchange any 2 resources for 2 credits. I'm going to have them exchange 1 titanium and 1 nanocarbon. So put those there, and they'll take 2 credits. And those will go into their station. And I think they're also going to play this tactics card, which says play on your turn when you are not in a battle. It's their turn and they're not in a battle. Choose 1 planet and claim 1 moon token from it. Now, because we played that, we've got to advance the event marker 1 space, so we will do that. But then we get to choose a planet and claim 1 moon token from it. So I think they're going to claim this ice moon token from that planet and put it on their station. That's going to end their activation. So now we would go to the Raider strikes. Still none of the Raiders. They're 2 away since their range is since their range is 1 and not 2. They can't strike. So there's no battle, and that will end the purple player's turn. Alright, we will come to the green player. It's their turn. They're going to do a launch. It's going to be their first launch. So they can't launch to where there is another player. So we'll just say they're going to come to the Maximus field. Now that's going to advance the event marker 1. They're going to do as a free action, they're going to recruit 1 of their leaders. And so that'll come here onto their station. And now they have the opportunity, they can buy a science or science modules or industry modules or a combination thereof. 2, so 1 of each or 2 of 1, as we explained. So this one has a cost of a nanocarbon and any resource. So I think they're going to spend a nanocarbon and an energy. And they will take this one, so that will go here in the row with their other science modules. And now they can still buy another one if they want. I think they will. They'll buy this one here that's 1 titanium and any 1 resource, so they're going to spend a titanium and they'll spend another energy. So titanium and energy. They'll take this one, they'll put that there, and now we've got to slide these down and refresh. Alright, and now we would move to the Raider strike, but there are no Raiders within range of the active region. So, we forgot. I forgot when I got those modules, I should have moved up on the track. So first, green should have moved up here on the science track, and then they should have also moved up on the industry track, which is going to let them do an upgrade. But unfortunately, they've spent most of their resources. You can't see the costs up here, but if we look over on Blue's sheet, we would need 2 of any resource. I guess we could do that, 2 of any resource to upgrade our transports, but we don't have any more titanium or nanocarbon. We've spent all that, and I don't have any credits that I could use for a while. So I could upgrade the transports if I wanted to, because that has a cost of any 2 resources, as can be seen here. So I think we're going to do that. So here's our transport upgrade, so we will place that there, and we got to play our any 2 resources, so we'll pay an ice and an energy. And then whenever you do an upgrade, you get to build a ship. So we get to build a transport there in our launch bay. And the only thing that gave us is when we build a development, we gain, it looks like 3 victory points. Alright, so now we would go to the raider strike step. We don't have any raiders in range, so there's no battle, and so that's going to end green's turn. Alright, we come back to blue's turn. So he can do a launch, or he could do a return to station, but since he's only got 1 ship out, it would be kind of foolish to do a return to station, so I think he's going to do a launch. Now this is not a first launch, it's a subsequent launch, so he's got to launch within range of one of his other ships. Since the transports only have a range of 1, he can only go to one of these 2 spaces. He can't launch to where he already has a ship, and he has to launch within range. Now he could launch where there's another ship if there was one here, but at a range 1, he's got to go to one of these planets. So we'll just say he's going to come to this red planet. He'll activate that region. He'll take this moon token. That is pretty much all he's going to be able to do at this point. He's got no other actions really to take. We'll come to Raider Strike. There's no raiders in range, so no Raider Strike, so no battle. So pretty quick turn for blue, and we go on to purple again. Alright, purple's turn. They're going to do a launch. So they're going to take one of their transports, as that's the only type of ships they have. It is a subsequent launch, so they have to launch within range of one of their other ships. So their only ship is this, so they could launch to this planet, or they could launch to Odessa Field, or this development office. Development office they wouldn't be able to do because they don't have a ship on a planet that they could build a development. If they come to the Odessa Field, they'll get to buy either a commerce or civilization module. But of course then they'll be in range of that raider, but maybe we want to do that just to see how it works. So we'll have them launch to the Odessa Field. Of course that's going to move us up on the event track, so we'll move that. For a free action they're going to recruit one of their leaders there, so they'll take this purple, put it on their station. Alright, now they can buy 1 or 2 modules from the commerce or civilization. Let's see what we got here. They are going to, they'll buy this civilization module that costs 1 ice and any 1 resource. So let me stick that here. Let me do the payment. I don't have an ice, but I can use a credit for a wild, and then I'll use an energy for my other resource. Now just to look at this module we bought, when you activate this module when you're doing your return to station, if you activate this module you have to pay any 1 resource, and then you get to move up 1 on the commerce track. Okay, but we bought that module, so purple gets to move up 1 on the commerce track. Now they still can buy another module. They could buy another one of the other civilization modules, or they could buy a commerce module. I think they'll buy this one. It costs 1 credit and any 1 resource, so they'll spend a credit and a nanocarbon. So they will acquire this module. I'll put it, you can see I'm kind of crowded over here next to green. If I got too many modules I'll be in a pickle. But you'll see this one comes damaged, so they have to put a damage marker on it. So I will put that there. But in the future, if they repair that, and when they're doing their return to station action, if they activate that module, they'll get 1 victory point, they'll get 1 credit, and then all players will get 1 credit. Okay, and now they get to move up on the commerce track. So purple will move here. And now we'll slide these down and refill. Alright, well, we finished our actions, so now we move on to the Raider Strike. This Raider Vorticon Striker is now in range because they have a range of 1, so they will move there. This other one is out of range, it would need a range of 2, so it can't move in there as well. Alright, but now we move on to the battle phase, and because we have 2 or more opposing factions or raiders in the activated region, we will have a battle. So the first thing is an escalation ship, where the players have the opportunity to move any of their ships that are within range into the battle. So the purple player will go ahead and move their other transport in there. It is in range, so they're going to move it into the region. Any of the other players, if they were in range, they could try to move in there too, but none of the other players have ships in range. Oh, and before we go on with that battle, I wanted to mention this faction has an ability when you gain a damaged module, draw one tactics card. They did gain a damaged module, so they should have gotten to draw a tactics card when they did that. And this one's a diplomacy. Choose any of your ships in the active region, move them to your launch bay. So we're actually at the diplomacy portion of the battle phase, so the player could play this if they wanted to basically get out of the battle, but they don't want to play that, so no player is going to play a diplomacy. So now we move on to the battle preparations phase. The blue player, the purple player has 2 transports, which each get 1 dice, so they'll have 2 purple dice. The Vorticon Striker gets 2 dice, as seen on their card there. The purple player will have a targeting value of 2 because they've got 2 ships in there. If the purple player had a battle card that they could use in the battle preparations phase, they could use that now, but they don't. So that all the battle preparations are now finished. So now we go on to roll battle dice. So we will roll the dice, and the Vorticon Striker got a 5 against our 2. Now, because our targeting value is 2, we get to re-roll this 1 because that's below our targeting value, so that's a 3. So at this point, if we did nothing else, we would lose this battle because the Vorticon Striker's got a 5 to our 3. However, we do have a tactics card. So they're going to play this. Play after you roll dice in a battle. The card counts as an additional result of a 6 for you. So that gives them a 6 against the Vorticon Striker's 5. So the purple player will actually end up winning this battle. So for winning the battle, they get to advance 1 space on the supremacy track. They will get the reward shown on the Vorticon Striker of a tactics card, so they will get to draw that into their hand. Because this Vorticon Striker has no shields and it was defeated, it will just be removed from the board. And that wraps up the battle, and that wraps up the purple player's turn. Alright, we now come back to the green player. They're going to launch. It's a subsequent launch. They've got to launch within range 1 of their other ships, which is this is the only other one they have on the board. They can't go into a nebula because they don't have the voyage capability on a transport. So if they went here, they would end up being in a battle, so I don't think they want to do that. So they're going to go to this planet, activate that region, they'll collect this moon, and I think they'll go ahead and just abandon this moon now and get the reward, so they get 1 victory point and 1 titanium. We'll just create a little over here, a little area over here for our discarded moons. Alright, so 1 victory point and 1 titanium, which goes into their supply. They're then going to play this tactics card, Forgotten Moon. Play on your turn when you are not in a battle. Choose 1 moon token from the discard pile. So they'll get to get that token they just discarded, they'll get to get that back if they play that, which they are. But it does advance the event marker 1 space. And they're going to get this moon token that's in the discard pile and get it back. put it back on their station. Then I think they're going to use this ability on their faction. Once per turn, on your turn, you may choose one of your leaders on the board and move it to an adjacent region. So they're going to choose this leader, move it to an adjacent adjacent region here to Maximus Field. Then they're going to use their free action to recruit leaders. So they can recruit leaders in any region where they have a ship. Well, they do have a ship here, so they can recruit this leader and put it on their station. Alright, I think that's going to be all the actions they're going to do. So now we go to the Raider Strike. The only Raider is way over here, definitely not in range of the active region. So there'll be no Raider Strike or no battle. Alright, we're back to our blue player. They have one ship left they could launch. Now they don't have to use all their ships. They could do a return to station and return the 2 ships they have out now if they wanted to. But I think they are going to go ahead and do a launch. Since this is a subsequent launch, they got to launch within range, which for this transport is 1. So they could go there, but they would end up having a battle. So I think they will just go here. They'll take this top moon token. Now you can't have more than 4 moon tokens in your station, so they'll end up, if they get many more, they'll have to end up either abandoning them to get the resources or slotting them somewhere or something. That's really all they can do on that planet. So now they will have Raider Strike. There's no Raiders in range, so that's going to end their turn. Alright, we're going to come back to the purple player. They have another transport they can launch. They are going to launch it. Has to be within range of one of their other ships. With both of their ships are up there right now. So I think they're going to launch this one here. Claim this token. Put it here on their station. There is no Raider within range of the active region, so there'll be no Raider Strike and there'll be no battle. So now we move on to the green player's turn. The green player will launch one of their transports. It's got to be within range of one of their other ships, since it can't go into the nebulas because they don't have the voyage capability. They're either going to have to go here where they would have a battle, so they don't want to do that, so they could go here to this alliance base, or they could trade 2 resources for 3 tactics cards, but I think they'll go to this planet and just get this moon, put that on their base, or their station. And I think that's going to be all they're going to do. There's not going to be a Raider Strike because the only Raider is over there and is not in range. No battle because there's no other ships in the active region, and so we'll end their turn. Alright, well now we come to the blue player. They have no ships to launch, so they have to do return to station action. So they'll take one of their transports. I think they're going to come here and activate their primary reactor, which just gives them 2 energy. If they had other modules, they would all have activated now just by putting one on the primary reactor. Alright, they're now going to they're going to activate the shipwright, and they'll use the build ship action. I think they're going to build this fighter, which is going to cost 1 titanium and 1 energy. So they'll spend that, and they get to build a fighter, which will go onto their launch bay. They still have 1 more ship they can return, and so we could put it, well, let's see. They could put it here to gain a credit. If they come here, they could either gain a tactics cards or take the development action, but they don't have any more ships on planets to do it, build a development. So I think they'll just come here and get the credit. Alright, now they'll return all these ships to their launch bay, They didn't spend any credits over here because they didn't have any modules, any other modules to spend credits on. So that pretty much wraps up their return to station action. It's the Purple's player's turn. They've got no more ships, so they'll have no choice but to do return to station as well. So they'll take this ship from the Odessa field, and they're going to come and activate this module. Now it's damaged, so normally they wouldn't be able to activate it because it's damaged, but they have this ability here for their faction, a fixer-upper or adhesive ooze. As long as you have 3 or fewer damaged modules, you may treat them as though they are undamaged. So they can treat that as though it's undamaged, so they'll get that. So they'll get 1 victory point, 1 credit, and then all players will get 1 credit. So we'll give them their victory point, and then they will get 1 credit, and then all players will get 1 credit, so they'll actually get 2. And then we'll give 1 credit to the other players as well. So this player will get a credit, and this player will get a credit. And now, because they've activated at least 1 module in this row, they can spend an energy if they want to activate another module in that row. So they'll activate that one to get a credit. So they will put that there. Alright, they're going to return this ship from the Odessa field to their primary reactor, which is going to give them 2 energy. So here's their 2 energy. I think they're now going to play this tactics card that assume command. Play on your turn when you are not in a battle. It's my turn, I'm not in a battle, so I can play this. Choose a raider and move it to an unoccupied alliance base and perform the action on that base. I'm going to take this raider. I'm going to move it to the development office and take the action on the development office to build a development on this planet where I have a ship. So I just need 3 credits, which I have, and I will spend those. Put them in the supply. And I need 2 leaders, which I will have and just discard over here. And that's all the cost for the spaceport development, so I'll take the spaceport token, slot it onto my transport there. Take the spaceport card. So if we look at the spaceport card, that lets me move up 1 on the commerce track. So that's the purple player. Move up 1 on the commerce track. They then get victory points for any leaders in the region and adjacent to it. So they've got 2 leaders in the spaceport, so that's 2 victory points, plus 2 more leaders there, 4, plus 2 more leaders there, 6, plus 3 more leaders there, 9, and this would even give me 12, but you can only have up to 10, so I'm going to get 10 victory points for that. So that will move us up to 13 on the victory point track. Now I can keep this in my play area to use this one-time special ability whenever I want, of trading any 2 resources for 3 resources. And of course then it'll give me scoring at the end of the game, so I'm just going to put that in my play area. And again, I can use this ability 1 time whenever I wish. Alright, and now I don't have any other ships to return, so I will just return these 2 ships to the launch bay. Discard this energy that I used to activate that module. And that's in the purple player's turn. We'll go on to the green player's turn. Alright, the green player doesn't have to do a return to station because they still have a transport they can use. But they could do a return to station if they wanted to, but they're not. They are going to use their last transport. They are going to come here to the Odessa field. They can do that because it's within range of another ship that they have. That's going to immediately move our event marker 1 space up. So now we've reached the end of the track, so we have to, at this point, reveal a tile, place it, and the moon tokens that go along with it. We have to take this marker, put it on the green player's sheet to remind them that after they finish their turn that they have to do the event card. Okay, green player is going to use their free action of recruit leaders and recruit this green leader and put it on their station. And now they can buy commerce, civilization, or one of each from the appropriate rows. We'll just say they're going to spend this 1 credit to get this 1, so they'll spend the credit. They'll take this, put it in there, take that module, place it there. Now this module, you have to slot a moon there, and whatever is on that moon is the cost you have to pay in order to get a titanium and a credit. You can't use this module until you've slotted a moon there, and when you do slot a moon there, you get 2 victory points. And they're not going to buy another module, so I'm going to just have them discard this one to the bottom of the civilization stack, and then they'll slide these down and refill. And just to show you, you can slot a moon at any time, so I'm going to slot this one here. That's going to give the green player 2 victory points. Oh, I forgot, when we bought that module, the green player should have gone up 1 here on the commerce track. And then again, anytime they activate this module, they can pay an energy or an ice to gain a titanium and a credit. Alright, that's going to end their action, but now we go to the Raider's Strike. There is a Raider in range, which they will move there and strike. So now we are going to have a battle. So the first part of the battle is the escalation phase, so players can move ships within range to the battle if they want. Well, the green player does have a ship within range, so they are going to move it there. We come to the diplomacy step. So beginning with the active player, they can play a diplomacy card. We know the green player does have this one. I think they're going to go ahead and play this, so the battle ends and they get to advance 1 space on the supremacy track. So they will advance 1. Now that would normally advance the event token, but as the event token is on my station, it can't advance. That will now end my turn, so I will now resolve an event. So we'll draw an event card. First thing to look at is that we're going to score on the civilization track. And as I mentioned, you would score whatever your marker is next to on the civilization track, -1 for any damaged modules. None of the players have damaged modules. Well, the purple player does have 1, but because of their ability, if they have fewer than 3 or fewer damaged modules, they get to treat them as though they're not damaged. So we'll go ahead and score. So green, you can see, will get 5 points, so they'll move 5 up on the track. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Purple is on 7, so they'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and blue gets 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright, next we see it's going to place S-class raiders, which we already have on the board. So when you're going to place raiders that are already on the board, you place 2 S-class raiders where it's specified, so they begin in a random nebula. So we will just roll a die, and they're going to begin in 2, nebula 2. Alright, then we resolve the special effect. In turn order, each player may select and gain a new commerce or civilization module at no cost. Refill after each selection. Alright, since we're doing that in turn order, It starts with the green player whose turn it is. So they're going to take this civilization module. They'll place it down here. That one is you get to, when you activate that, you pay a tactics card to advance on any of the progress tracks. Alright, it says refill after each selection. So now we go on to the blue player and they get to select. And I think they're going to take this one, pay 1 titanium for 2 credits. So they'll place that there. Oh, I forgot green, because whenever you gain a module for any reason, you move up on that track. So green should have moved up on the civilization track. And now blue is going to move up on the commerce track. So they will go there. And we refill. And now purple will get to choose as well. That one that the blue player took starts in play damaged, so I need to place a damage marker on that. Okay, now purple gets their choice up here. And I think they'll take this civilization module that at the end of the game lets them gain 3 victory points plus 3 more victory points for each spaceport they've built. And they have built 1 spaceport, so that's going to be worth 6 victory points for sure. And if they build more spaceports, then it could be worth more. Then they'll get to go up 1 on the civilization track there, and now we refill. All right, and that is going to finish up with that event card. So we will just discard that, and now we reset the event track. So we take the event marker and place it back on the 3-player slot, since that's what we're playing. That would end green's turn, and now we would move on to the blue player's turn, where they would have to do a launch action because they have no ships on the board. But I think I'm going to wrap it up. I think we've shown a pretty good example of how the game plays. It's a little slower at the beginning, but as you gain more resources and get spaceports and that kind of thing out there, and get more ships built, there's more things going on. But I think you can see how the game plays. I'm going to wrap it up. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it.